Welcome to this video. My name is Paul. I'm a German videographer. I'm from Berlin, Germany, and I earn my living with the Lumix S1H, with the Lumix S5, and I have the DJI R3 drone. And I purchased recently some filters for this little drone here. That's some ND filters, neutral density filters. Why do you need neutral density filters? On my camera I have a ND filter to have the 180-degree shutter rule. If you know some cinematic settings for a camera, cinematic settings, you know you want to have, when you film in 25 FPS, a shutter speed of 1/50th a second. That's necessary for nice motion blur. That looks very nice. And I thought to myself, maybe I also want this in my professional drone. So I purchased these nice newer ND filters. And in this newer ND filter set, you have the filters from ND8, ND16, ND32, ND64, an UV filter, and even a CPL filter. And why do you need an ND filter for your drone? Well, it gives also your drone the ability to film very smooth footage when it comes to movements. When you, for instance, fly low over a field and you don't use an ND filter, you see sometimes that moving objects in the video begin to stutter. It looks not so ultra smooth like in these cinematic drone videos you see often on YouTube. It doesn't look as clean. It is not so very good. With a ND filter, you can have the same amount of motion blur as in the camera video, because when you film with your camera, a nice vacation video or something, and then you film with a drone and you don't have the right shutter speed, people can see this. When you have all over mixed shutter speeds in the whole video, sometimes that is not so ultra necessary because people will not detect it. But when every scene has a nice motion blur and then your drone has not so nice motion blur, you see this. And that's a problem. The downside of having ND filters is that when the lighting situation changes, basically you have then to land and change the ND filter. That's the downside. It takes a little bit longer. You have then to take out the drone, test everything. Is this correct ND filter? Is it not the correct ND filter? And people tend then to don't use the ND filter because you need more time. And now let's come to the test part. What looks better, ND filter or no ND filter? So with these nice ND filters and even a CPL filter, the drone has in front of his lenses, both lenses here, a little protection. You turn it to the left side, then you can detach it, use some ND filter that you think is correct, and then you attach it. This drone has a little magnetic mechanism to hold these ND filters. You put it on the gimbal, move it to the right, and it takes sometimes a little bit force with these newer ND filters. I am sometimes afraid while doing this to destroy the little gimbal here that can be destroyed very easily because it's a very small mechanism here. But now you have basically an ND filter on the drone. So we have now an ND filter on the drone. We can see here in the setting that we have 4K 25 FPS, but we are on auto mode. So we change now the setting from automatic noob beginner mode to pro mode. And we want to change the aperture and everything in pro mode. As we can see here, the picture became already a little bit darker. So we have now auto ISO on 200, that's okay. Let's stop the recording here for a second. And we use now a shutter speed of 1/50 because we fly on 25 FPS. And now, as we can see this, we have a nice motion blur. When I move the camera, you can see that looks very smooth and nice, and it's even correct lighting environment. Actually, is the ND64 quite good and quite nice for this drone. That is actually good. In the behind the scenes, we can actually see my apprentice as my new cameraman. But as we can see here, that's very, very dark. Actually, we almost cannot see him. And when we would now fly with the drone, that would work. Now I detached the ND filter, that we can see the effect of having no ND filter in the camera whatsoever. So that's the ND filter. And now the image is way too bright. As we can see here, the image looks terrible and this cinematic setting doesn't work at all. We should now then use the automatic settings but motion when you move the camera now looks not so ultra smooth. I mean, the gimbal is smooth, but not the general image. I'm old, my legs hurt. A CPL filter works that the camera basically cancels out some light waves. Usually that works only 90 degrees to the sun here. I don't know if you can see this, but sometimes is the green then a little bit nicer looking. A CPL filter in a drone, I would not recommend so much a CPL filter for a drone, honestly, because it only works in 90 degrees to the sun. It has some very specific effects that you cancel out some reflections in an image. And sometimes it's the leaves are sometimes a bit more greener, the sky is a little bit more bluer. You have to use an ND filter when you want to film through a window of a car. For instance, when you fly next to a car, that's the only occasion I would use an ND filter, and you want to cancel out the reflection of the glass, then you need basically a CPL filter. That's the only occasion when you need a CPL filter. Would I purchase an ND filter or not? Yes, I would, because in my opinion, is it more worth to have 2 or 3 cinematic nice shots on your vacation, or when you film for a client, is it necessary, in my opinion, to have a nice ND filter? When you film for yourself on vacation, I think it's very cooler to have some really nice looking motion blur cinematic shots. I use this word here because that's actually a rule that is used in a cinema. And then I would be happy with these 2 or 3 shots. You can then land, change the ND filter when the lighting environment changes, and etc. Most of the time you film anyway a lot of material, and in your vacation video lands maybe 3 or 5% of it. If you want to, however, then make pictures, you have then to land, detach the ND filter and make a picture, because when you want to take photos with an ND filter, the motion blur will sometimes then ruin your image. So this ND filter set cost, I think, 80 euro from Amazon. I purchased it by myself. I already used it because, like I said, when you film for clients and you use a whole different motion blur in the video, is this very noticeable, and that brings the viewer out of the movie you make, out of the cinematic video for the client. So thank you very much. My name is Paul. That was my little video. See you in the next video.